Over the years in my restaurants, by using a technique of cooking at high temperatures on a dry pan surface, I've made light and tasty dishes of any cuisine quickly and easily. And this with just 1 or 2 pans and a blender for any dish. Alexia and I have always loved the sensuality of Morocco and its people, so with my 2-pan and a blender kit, a camera, and enthusiasm to spare, we went to Morocco, covered 10,000 kilometers over 3 months, cooked, ate, laughed, and had an unforgettable time. With these shows, we hope to inspire and motivate you to cook these dishes and discover the sensual magic of Morocco at home.
إن الله لا يحب المفسدين. سعني البدعة. لا يحب. والموظف الإداري.
Dried morels. Morel, eh?
Morning.
Today, Marrakesh to Ouarzazate is a comfortable 2.5-hour, 200-kilometer trip on a paved highway from the lush valley outside Marrakesh over the high Atlas Mountains and into the desert. Wow, smell the air. It's cold, eh? Crisp. Oh, man. Big ostrich eggs. Hey, I used to play. The last time I visited Ouarzazate 30 years ago, I did it on motorbike, dodging potholes and swerving to avoid fall-away jagged edges and 1,000-meter drops on a twisting, unpaved mountain road. On my first trip, I briefly met a man named Dimitri. I decided to go back and pay my respects and find out why I had never forgotten this man that I barely knew. Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour. After countless anecdotes by his son, endless solicited and unsolicited testimonies of people from all walks of life, I got to know Dimitri and to realize why anybody that had met this man was not likely to forget him. As the story goes, 80 years ago, barely 15, Dimitri, with 100 gold sovereigns in his pocket, stopped over in Morocco on his way to the US of A to pursue the American dream. He got waylaid. Undaunted, he went ahead and made his American dream come true in a desert resting spot, Ouarzazate, by building a small eating shack, Chez Dimitri. It took me a few minutes to realize I just met Dimitri's son, Pierre, who told me his father had passed away and took me on a tour to show me Dimitri's legacy in Ouarzazate. This is a photograph of Ouarzazate when Mr. Dimitri arrived. Originally when he arrived, this was the whole city, and this, the prominent building here, is the restaurant. Across the street is what is the supermarket today. As recently as 1978, when I came here, Ouarzazate was barely a few blocks long.
And the restaurant when you come went like that?
That's right. This is the restaurant. There were petrol pumps in front. I believe it was a post office too,
yes,
and a dance hall. Afterwards, Pierre proudly showed me the changes he'd made to modernize Chez Dimitri. One of the Dimitri anecdotes that impressed me the most was that when Pierre was still young, Dimitri gave him a satchel with 98 of the 100 gold sovereigns he had arrived in Ouarzazate. Had Dimitri built his immense desert empire with just 2 gold sovereigns? Nobody knows. The next day, Pierre offered his kitchen for me to cook in and hinted that maybe I could cook a couple of Greek dishes while I was at it. The restaurant has become a home away from home for Hollywood actors. When I cook, I focus on somebody that inspires me. Tons of inspiration here, you'd think. It's Marlena, Orson, Elizabeth Taylor, whose weight problems could be solved with the 2-pan and blender method of cooking. Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince. Nevertheless, I chose the smiling little girl outside Chez Dimitri to cook for. This is Pierre's kitchen staff, Chef Lord, and the 2 helpers, Hussein and Oulaïd, a tough name for me to remember. So we're going to unpack our bag. I decided to make a series of the famous Moroccan sweet and salty dishes using meat, poultry, dried fruit, nuts, spices, and honey. With my 2-pan and blender method, I make my favorite ones in 4 easy steps. Step 1, caramelize onions with honey. Step 2, make sauce with dried fruit, nuts, and spices. Step 3, sear meat. Step 4, add caramelized onions and sauce to meat and finish cooking. Use the same method to make your favorite meat, fruit, and nut combinations at home. Chef and his 2 helpers who are going to be helping me. If you're lucky enough, you'll also have 3 helpers in your kitchen at home. No bones. With the 2-pan blender method, the meat is deboned and cut into small chunks or medallions, so as to sear immediately, cook quickly, remain juicy, and retain flavor and texture. The Moroccans don't have to debone the meat because the traditional cooking method is to stew the meat until it literally falls off the bone. So let's buy a chicken. I wonder how he picks the good ones. Chickens look pretty fresh here, so I think we'll get one. We're gonna make prunes with almonds with lamb and caramelized onions. Espanol, steaky meat. Espanol, no?
This is movie.
This is a Sahara telephone.
For Sahara telephone.
For long distance calls. The traditional sweet and salty dishes are stews that register in the red alert level of comfort food, but take hours to make. The 2-pan blender method, on the other hand, results in dishes with sharp tastes, distinctive textures, alive with flavor a la minute. To achieve this, the cooking is done on a hot surface of a non-stick pan. For the best results, make sure that the contents of the pan are in perpetual motion. This can be done in many ways. Do it your way, but do it. I caramelized enough onions and leeks for the next 4 dishes. On a preheated dry pan, sauté onions until brown. Add honey and cook for a minute or 2 to coat the onions. By varying the ratio of honey to salt during caramelization, one can get their own perfect sweet-salty balance in the final dish. Caramelize the leeks the same way as the onions. Caramelized onions are very popular in Morocco. I use them to bring the sweet and salty taste to my a la minute dishes. For my first dish, lamb with prunes and almonds, prunes soaking for the blender with caramelized onions and fresh almonds. In the heart of winter in January in Morocco, almond trees are already in full bloom and pop up in the most unexpected places. Blend half the prunes with water, cumin, cinnamon, and coriander until smooth. On preheated dry pan at a high temperature, sear and cook lamb for about 3 minutes. Add some water, blended sauce, prunes, almonds, caramelized onions, and cook for another 4 minutes. To compensate for evaporation, a little extra water, and finally some olive oil. The lamb with the prunes and almonds. This classic Moroccan dish could easily become a 2-pan and a blender favorite. It's good. For the lamb with raisins and almonds, pan-dried almonds, caramelized onions, and raisins soaking in brandy water with saffron and coriander. On preheated dry pan at a high temperature, sear lamb. Add raisins with brandy water and spices, almonds, caramelized leeks, and a little oil, and cook for 5 more minutes. Arrange the lamb in a tagine. The Moroccan tagine is a unique 3-piece portable ceramic unit which includes a stove, a cooking pot cum serving dish, and a lid. Moroccan meals are cooked in a tagine with the lid on. The Moroccans have a saying, the eyes have to eat first. The aroma adds to the anticipation. Finish the lamb and raisin dish by placing meat around the rim of the tagine and the sauce in the middle. For the chicken with dates and sesame seeds, we have sesame, ras al hanout, caramelized onions, and dates soaking in water for the blender. Blend half the dates with water and ras al hanout. Ras al hanout means best in the shop, and every merchant has his own favorite mixture. If bartenders in the West can call themselves mixologists, then surely the makers of ras al hanout, which contains up to 38 spices, should be called mega mixologists. If you can't find ras al hanout, for this dish use ginger, cinnamon, cumin, coriander, and turmeric.
And they give you this for free.
To chicken sautéed for 3 minutes in a preheated dry pan at high temperature, add whole dates, blended mixture of dates and spices, caramelized onions, water, and oil. Cook for another 2 to 3 minutes. Garnish with sesame seeds and coriander or parsley. For beef with figs and walnuts, I use the caramelized leeks instead of the onions, pan-dried walnuts, and dried figs soaking in water. We add anise for flavor. In the Middle East, figs and walnuts are considered nature's Viagra. You just know this guy's been eating a lot of them. Blend half the figs, water, honey, and anise until smooth. Poquito más miel, no miel, no. Es dulce, no miel. I'd barely finished telling Ulait that the blended mixture was already too sweet when, out of left field, the chef snuck in with a dollop of honey.
Halfway through the figs, I've decided I'm going to give them a little bit of sour taste, which is uncommon here.
A classic taste standoff, the Moroccan sweet versus the Greek sour. By now, the blended mixture contains the prescribed amounts of figs, water, anise, and honey. The chef's extra honey, my lemon counterattack.
Very good. Yeah.
Finally, both sides are satisfied. On preheated dry pan at high temperature, when beef is seared on both sides, add blended mixture, figs, walnuts, and extra water. Add caramelized leeks and olive oil. Cook for another 3 minutes. The ouzo I added while the chef was flambeing the dish, I think was a bit excessive, seeing as it singed his mustache in the process. Garnish with parsley. What with my unorthodox use of lemon in the fig and walnut dish and the mustache-singeing caper, I realized it was time to do some serious bonding with the chef.
Poivre, sí, pepper. Good, eh?
From the smallest villages to the largest cities, Moroccans sell their fresh produce in open-air markets. The Moroccans love to caramelize tomatoes, pumpkins, and even eggplant, and serve them with meat or poultry, or just as salads. My challenge at this point was to convince the chef to add a little sour to the caramelized vegetable and meat dishes we were going to be making. He didn't dismiss my suggestion, but wasn't exactly enthused.
Must go inside and cocinar.
Ibrahim the maitre d' added his personal cornerstone to the Dimitri myth.
Whoever says Ouarzazate, it's the same thing, eh? Ouarzazate and Dimitri, one and the same. What did Mr. Dimitri do for Ouarzazate?
Mr. Dimitri did a lot of things, of good things. If Mr. Dimitri was not here in Ouarzazate will not be like it's now.
The next 3 dishes that I made with caramelized tomatoes, caramelized pumpkin, and dried apricots were delicious with a sweet, salty, and sour taste. For beef with caramelized tomato and roasted pumpkin seeds, add peeled tomatoes to preheated dry pan.
We add ras hanout.
Use allspice, cumin, and cinnamon if ras al hanout is not available.
And a few cloves. Knoffen. Knoffen, yeah. And sucre, eh? No? No sugar?
Chef Law ignored my insinuation that he used sugar, and just to prove me wrong, promptly went ahead and added more honey to the tomatoes.
Honey is enough, eh?
Add a little salt and oil. Tomatoes are ready when they start to thicken and take on a golden brown, dark red color.
Okay, I have the same. Yes, même chose, eh? All right.
On a preheated dry pan, sauté the beef. Place beef on caramelized tomatoes. To leeks caramelized with honey, add a little balsamic or vinegar of choice and glaze for a couple of minutes. Add leeks to give a sound note to this dish and garnish with roasted pumpkin seeds. My budget doesn't include a band, so I'll do a musical interlude myself to get you inspired and me in the mood.
I gotta get it right. Yeah, wait.
You get what?
Well, so much for that idea.
Too much.
For the chicken with caramelized pumpkin and walnuts, we have pumpkin, citronella, orange juice and zest of orange, walnuts, nutmeg, and ginger. On preheated dry pan at high temperature, pan dry the pumpkin.
We add a bit of salt.
The orange juice and zest are used so as to give a fruity flavor. The chef's obsession with adding honey to dishes whenever I wasn't watching had me so rattled I almost forgot to add honey, the most important ingredient in this dish. After all, no honey, no caramelizer. There he goes again with that honey jar. This guy makes Winnie the Pooh look like a slouch.
Citronella leaves.
Cook until pumpkin has absorbed most of the orange juice.
I have the ginger. Es posible.
Blend caramelized pumpkin with remaining liquid and a little olive oil, and saute in pan for a couple of minutes. On a preheated dry pan at a high temperature, saute chicken and walnuts for 3 minutes. To give a sour taste to this dish, add a lemon-honey mixture to coat the walnuts and chicken. When the Morocco-Tunisia game for the Copa Africa football title started, Chef Law immediately became a full-time football fan and made Hussein the official television reception descrambler. Alexia, did Morocco score, or are they just happy to see my dish? For apricots and pistachios with chicken, fresh basil, pan-dried pistachios for garnish, crushed green pistachios and dried apricots. Soak apricots in warm water for 30 minutes to soften. Blend half the apricots with water, green pistachios, some basil, and lemon blossom water until smooth. Add turmeric for color and cardamom for aroma. Some cayenne to give a little kick to this dish. No honey, the sweet and sour taste of the apricots was too good to spoil. This time I thought I'd snookered the chef by hiding the honey. Turns out he couldn't care less. He was more interested in the outcome of the football game than in our sweet or sour contest. Saute chicken for 3 minutes in a preheated dry pan at a high temperature. Add sauce, whole apricot, some oil, and cook for 3 to 4 more minutes.
A little bit of water.
Garnish with roasted pistachios and basil. What a beauty. I forgot where I stashed the honey, so I slunk off across the street to the supermarket, ran into Nini, didn't get the honey, but got one hell of a Dimitri story.
Nini's real name is Nicholas Landouris. His father was Greek. He was born way down in the desert. His father remarried, had other children, left for Australia, and sent Nini to Mr. Dimitri, who then adopted him and he became part of the Catracazos family. So he's been here 50 years, a few years before even Pierre was born, and is now in charge of the whole operation, including the supermarket. He says the most wonderful man and the best and most kind-hearted man he ever met in his life.
When I returned, Morocco had just won the football game. Ecstatic Chef Law not only agreed, but shook on making 3 Cretan-style sour and salty appetizers for Pierre. Sauté truffles and garlic in a preheated dry pan. Add oil and sour goat's cream cheese. Season with salt and pepper, and cook until cheese coats the truffles. For these dishes, I decided to use fresh herbs rather than spices. Add fresh marjoram, common to both Morocco and Crete, and unfortunately used mostly for tea in both places. Cook eggplant on open flame until soft and smoky. Peel the eggplant and crush lightly with a fork.
Salt, pepper, lemon, oil.
Add a bit of crushed garlic if you like. Garnish with a little more olive oil, fresh basil, oregano, and sun-dried Moroccan olives.
Okay?
On a preheated dry pan, sauté chicken livers with whole cloves of garlic. Add oil, salt, and pepper. Garnish with fresh thyme. Pour a mixture of mustard and lemon on the livers and serve. Hussein, Ulaid's willing help, and Chef Law's challenges made this one of the most enjoyable cooking experiences I've ever had.
We did it. See? Gracias. Thank you very much.
What do we have when a Greek, 2 Berbers, and a Bedouin cook Moroccan food, Chinese style, in a French restaurant with 2 pans and a blender?
basket.
I'm not going to punish you by showing you how much we enjoyed these dishes. Make them and find out for yourself. Too bad the little girl never tasted the food. She'd been long gone by the time we finished cooking. See, all my life, I've been inspired by authors like Ouarzazate, Dostoevsky, and Pablo Neruda. Oh, thank you. That I had the ability to fly. But then there were people like Dimitri, who by his life set an example and showed me that one man can make a difference. Pierre, a chip off the old block, has increased the fortune he inherited from his father manyfold and invited us to see what he had built in memory of his father. This whole establishment, which was put together by Mr. Pierre, is an establishment for underprivileged or disabled and children with special needs. And it caters to the whole area and all the needs of the children.
Where we began this foundation, the first children are inside the house. They don't go outside.
Oh, yes.
Children that never go out.
And we have to go in them and to explain the family and to come with their family here to show
What you can offer
what
them.
you can do for
Right,
them.
they keep.
And this is what these are prosthetics. Oh, the lady is a shoemaker and she makes the orthopedic shoes, which are up here. Everybody here contributes to the finances of the center by either making crafts or selling them. This gives them a feeling of pride and self-esteem. They don't accept or expect handouts. The Horizon Foundation, set up by Pierre, has taken tremendous strides in alleviating the social stigma associated with disabled children in Ouarzazate. In recognition for his contribution, the king himself inaugurated the Horizon Foundation and presented Pierre with a citation. Tireless in his efforts, Pierre is continuously soliciting hospitals and healthcare centers around the world to recycle their redundant equipment by donating some of it to the Horizon Foundation. Once I asked Pierre whether he'd ever leave Ouarzazate. He thought about it for a bit and answered, maybe, if they name a street after my father. They, the authorities, probably suspect this, and if for no other reason, are holding out on naming a street, Dimitri Katrazus. Alexia, we're definitely coming back sooner next time.
Maybe Pierre's son, Dimitri Jr., will be running the restaurant.
Hopefully with Pierre and a street named Dimitri in Ouarzazate.